I am Field Commander Scancelin, formerly Supreme Security Director of the Shenath Imperium, now Supreme Commander of the Liberation Forces, and I am winning a war that should be mathematically impossible to win. 1 month has passed since the Battle of Proxima Grid, my first major victory as Commander of the Liberation Forces. 1 month of rapid expansion, of watching our guerrilla tactics shred the once invincible Imperium formations like quantum shears through fabric. 1 month of teaching other Shenath commanders to embrace unpredictability. Casualty reports from the Vega sector operation, my chief analyst Krevisk announces, placing a data crystal on my desk. I activate it, scanning the figures with what remains of my old Shenath precision. 17 Liberation troops lost, 12 wounded. 4.3 billion Liberation battle droids destroyed versus 7 billion Imperium battle droids neutralized. I allow myself the small upward twitch at the corner of my mouth that passes for a Shenath smile. A ratio of 1 to 1.63, not optimal but acceptable. And the salvage operations? Highly successful, Commander, Krevisk replies, her own expression far more openly enthusiastic than traditional Shenath propriety would permit. Repair teams have already reclaimed approximately 2 billion of the damaged Imperium units. Once reprogrammed, they'll be deployed within 3 cycles. Excellent. The Imperium continues to underestimate the value of battlefield salvage. Their doctrine still classifies it as beneath strategic consideration, Krevisk notes with what I've come to recognize as dry humor. Resource waste is apparently preferable to the perceived indignity of reclaiming damaged units. Their loss, our gain, I observe. Nearly 40% of our current battle droid forces are repurposed Imperium units. The High Command would be horrified if they realized their own discarded machines now fight against them. More than horrified, Commander, the Tactical Applications Division would face mass execution for not predicting such a resource reallocation strategy. Overall, the operation consumed only 8% of projected resources and completed in 64% of the estimated time frame, I note, continuing through the report. And the command staff casualties? Her expression sobers slightly. 3 of our 19 field commanders were lost. All junior grade, but still significant losses given our shortage of organics who can implement the new tactical doctrine. This remains our greatest challenge. While we control trillions of battle droids, we have a severe shortage of organic commanders who can effectively implement what the Knights call quantum adaptive tactics, the blend of Shenath precision and human unpredictability that has proven so devastatingly effective against Imperium forces. Accelerate the training program, I decide. Reduce theoretical instruction by 30% and increase practical field exercises proportionally. Commander, Krevisk hesitates, the current training protocol was designed for optimal knowledge retention and optimal under traditional Shenath parameters, I interrupt gently. Remember what Colonel Clarkson told us. Sometimes doing things less perfectly leads to better results. Her secondary breathing bladders inflate slightly, a sign of discomfort with this counterintuitive concept, but she nods. Yes, Commander, I'll implement the changes immediately. As she leaves, I return my attention to the holographic map dominating my command center. It displays the current state of the conflict across Shenath space. Red indicating Imperium control, blue showing Liberation territory, and yellow marking contested regions. 3 months ago, the map would have been almost entirely red, with a few isolated specks of blue and yellow. Now, nearly 40% displays as blue or yellow. My attention focuses on one particular system, Calaxis I-4, the primary manufacturing center for Imperium battle droids. The system glows a solid red, surrounded by a ring of heavily fortified defensive installations. Still planning the big one, I see. I turn at the familiar drawl to find Colonel Mackenzie Clarkson leaning against the doorframe of my command center. Behind her stand the Duncan brothers, Swamp and Pockets, their quantum spurs leaving faint blue traces on my immaculate floor. Colonel Clarkson, I acknowledge with a formal nod. Your arrival was not on today's schedule. She grins, striding into the command center with that casual disregard for protocol that once irritated me but now strikes me as almost endearing. That's kind of the point, isn't it? Unpredictability and all that. Besides, Pockets adds, following her inside, your security protocols could use a real-world stress test. We made it all the way to your command center without setting off a single alarm. That is concerning, I admit. Though I suspect your quantum spurs played a significant role in bypassing our systems. Among other things, Swamp says cryptically, his imposing frame making my command staff look diminutive by comparison. But don't worry, we'll help you patch the vulnerabilities before we leave. To what do I owe this unexpected visit? I ask, gesturing for them to join me at the strategic display. Thought we'd check on our star pupil, Clarkson replies, studying the holographic map with appreciation. Looks like you've been busy. 40% in just a few months? That's faster progress than even Stella predicted. The Imperium's rigid adherence to traditional doctrine makes them surprisingly vulnerable to our approach, I explain. They continue to deploy their forces in mathematically optimal formations, which become predictable to commanders who understand both Shenet precision and human adaptability. Translation, they're fighting yesterday's war, Pockets says, examining the display of Calaxis 4 with professional interest. While you're fighting tomorrow's. Precisely. I magnify the Calaxis system, highlighting the defensive structures. Though tomorrow's war requires significantly more manufacturing capacity than we currently possess. Despite our salvage operations yielding impressive results, we cannot sustain our expansion through reclamation alone, hence my interest in Calaxis 4. Your salvage program is something else, Swamp comments, studying the resource allocation figures on a nearby display. Never seen anyone turn battlefield cleanup into a strategic advantage quite like this. The Imperium considers salvage operations beneath their dignity, I explain. In their doctrine, damaged units are to be abandoned and replaced, not repaired. It's seen as more efficient to manufacture new units than to reclaim damaged ones. Wasteful, Pockets observes. Arrogant, Clarkson adds. Both, I agree, and a critical oversight we've exploited extensively. Nearly 40% of our current force consists of repurposed Imperium droids. Clarkson whistles softly. That's impressive even by our standards, but capturing Calaxis, the primary droid factory for the entire Imperium, they'll have that place locked down tighter than a Texas bank on Sunday. Which is precisely why they won't expect us to target it, I counter. High Command's tactical projections will calculate that we lack sufficient resources for such an operation, making it a low-priority defense concern compared to more mathematically feasible targets. The three knights exchange glances, a silent communication passing between them. You've been paying attention, Swamp observes with approval. Hit 'em where they think you can't, not where they think you will. If we can capture the Calaxis facilities intact, I continue, we would double our droid production capacity overnight. The strategic balance would shift dramatically. And you want our help planning this operation? Clarkson surmises. Your insights would be valuable, I acknowledge, but more importantly, I require access to Stella's tactical modeling capacity. The operation parameters exceed our current predictive capabilities. Well, you're in luck, she says, producing a small quantum chip from her pocket. Stella sent this along. It's a secure communications node, direct link to her primary systems. She's been following your progress and already has some thoughts on Calaxis. I accept the chip, noting the distinctive quantum fluctuations emanating from its surface. Please convey my appreciation. Tell her yourself, Pocket suggests. She responds well to direct gratitude, says most organics forget she has feelings. This gives me pause. The concept of an artificial intelligence having feelings is still difficult for my Shenath sensibilities to fully embrace. Yet I've learned that much of the Knight's effectiveness stems from their willingness to accept such counterintuitive notions. I shall do so, I promise. Now, perhaps you would care to review our preliminary planning for the Calaxis operation? Happy to, Clarkson agreed. But first, any chance of getting something to eat? We've been quantum jumping across 3 sectors to avoid Imperium patrols, and standard rations only go so far. I signal to an aide. Arrange a meal for our guests in my private dining area. Include both Sheneth and human nutritional options. And bourbon? Swamp inquires hopefully. We have acquired a modest supply for diplomatic purposes, I confirm, which earns appreciative nods from all 3 knights. As we move to the adjacent chamber, I find myself struck by how comfortable I've become with these humans in such a short time. 3 months ago, I viewed them as chaotic barbarians with inexplicably effective weapons. Now I find their presence reassuring, their unpredictability a strength rather than a liability. So, I say as we settle around the dining table, tell me how your other operations are progressing. The human involvement in this conflict remains limited to advisory roles, correct? Mostly, Clarkson confirms, as an aide serves drinks. We've got knights embedded with most major liberation battle groups, but our direct combat involvement is minimal. This needs to be your revolution, not ours. Though we do get our hands dirty when necessary, Pockets adds, accepting a glass of bourbon with evident appreciation, like that mess in the Cygnus sector last week. I received no reports of significant human engagement in Cygnus, I note with surprise. That's because there wasn't supposed to be any, Swamp explains, his massive frame making the chair creak slightly as he shifts. We were just observing a liberation raid on a communications relay when an Imperium capital ship showed up unexpectedly. Your folks were about to get vaporized, so we improvised. How exactly? I ask, intrigued. The brothers exchange grins. Let's just say that capital ship had a surprised look on its metaphorical face when 3 knights with quantum swords appeared on its bridge, Pocket says. We were in and out before anyone knew what happened. Ship's in liberation hands now. Being repurposed as we speak, Swamp adds. Your salvage teams are having a field day with it. Never seen folks so excited about recycling enemy tech. I process this information with interest. You infiltrated an Imperium capital vessel with just 3 operatives. The security protocols on such vessels are among the most sophisticated in the Imperium. Sophisticated, sure, Clarkson acknowledges, but still based on predictable algorithms. Once you understand the pattern, finding the gaps is just a matter of timing. The meal arrives. A careful selection of Shenath protein structures and human cuisine prepared by our culinary staff, who have been studying human nutritional requirements with typical Shenath thoroughness. So, I say as the knights sample the food with appreciative murmurs, I've been meaning to ask, your designations, Swamp and Pockets. I presume these are not your formal identifiers? The brothers laugh. A sound that still strikes me as remarkably unrestrained compared to Sheneth expressions of amusement. Nicknames, Pockets explains. Human tradition. Most knights have them. They derive from... I prompt, genuinely curious about this aspect of human culture. Usually something embarrassing that happened to you early on, Swamp replies, taking a hearty swig of bourbon. Mine comes from my first week as a knight recruit. There was an incident in the lavatory facilities. A quantum regulator ruptured in the waste reclamation system, Pockets elaborates, clearly enjoying his brother's slight discomfort. Most people ran. Swamp here decided to fix it. The environmental systems were at risk of cascade failure, Swamp defends himself. Someone had to do something, and he did, Pockets continues. Crawled right into that mess and fixed it with his bare hands, saved the facility, but when he came out, I smelled like a swamp and was covered in filth from head to toe, Swamp finishes with a resigned shrug. The name stuck. A practical solution to an immediate problem, I observe. Quite sensible, despite the unfortunate consequences. That's Swamp for you, Clarkson agreed. Practical to a fault. And Pockets? I inquire, turning to the smaller Duncan brother. Pockets grins. Much less heroic. I showed up at the recruitment office in cargo shorts. The recruiter hadn't ever seen them before and remarked how there were so many Pockets. He then put Pockets as my name on the recruitment forms. I blink, processing this explanation. Your military designation was determined by your choice of clothing at recruitment? Welcome to human organizational efficiency, Clarkson says with a laugh. Sometimes the most random things stick. And what of your designation, Colonel? I ask. Do you also possess such a nickname? The three knights exchange glances and something unspoken passes between them. That's a story for another time, Clarkson says with a mysterious smile. Let's focus on your Calaxis operation for now. I recognize the deflection but respect her privacy. Very well. The primary challenge is penetrating the outer defense grid without alerting the inner security systems. Conventional wisdom would suggest a large-scale assault to overwhelm their defenses, but conventional wisdom is exactly what they're prepared for. Pockets interjects, instantly focused on the tactical problem. You need something they won't see coming. Precisely. I activate a holographic display above the dining table, showing the Calaxis system in detail. My tactical staff has devised 17 potential approaches, but all suffer from the same fundamental flaw. They operate within parameters that Imperium defense algorithms are designed to counter. Swamp studies the display, his expression turning thoughtful. What if you don't attack at all? I tilt my head. Clarify. Well, you're thinking about this as a military operation, he explains, gesturing at the defensive installations surrounding Calaxis 4. But what if it was a delivery instead? Clarkson's eyes light up. Trojan horse. Exactly, Swamp confirms. I am unfamiliar with this tactical designation, I admit. Ancient Earth strategy, Pockets explains. The city of Troy couldn't be taken by force, so the attackers built a giant wooden horse, hid soldiers inside, and presented it as a gift. Trojans brought it into their city, and during the night the hidden soldiers emerged and opened the gates from inside. I consider this approach deception rather than direct confrontation. But Calaxis receives thousands of shipments daily, all subject to rigorous security protocol. True, Clarkson agrees, but those protocols are designed to detect weapons, explosives, unauthorized personnel. What they're not designed for is detecting something that's supposed to be there. Battle droids, I realize, understanding dawning. They're a droid manufacturing facility. They expect to receive shipments of droid components. Bingo, Pocket says with a grin. You send in shipments of damaged droids for recycling, except they're not damaged. They're yours, programmed to activate at a specific time and secure the facility from within. The perfect inversion of their own doctrine, I muse, appreciating the irony. Using their disdain for salvage operations against them, they'll never suspect we would return their own discarded units. It would seem illogical and beneath consideration. It's an elegantly simple solution, one that exploits the Imperium's assumption that threats come from outside, not from what they willingly bring inside their defenses. This has merit, I acknowledge, but the security scanning would detect functional droids disguised as non-functional units. Not if they're genuinely non-functional when scanned, Swamp suggests. You just need a way to reactivate them after they've passed inspection. Quantum triggers, Clarkson adds. Remote activation through quantum entanglement, undetectable by conventional scanning methods. I'm impressed despite myself. In mere minutes, they've identified an approach that my tactical staff, still thinking in predominantly Sheneth patterns despite their training, had overlooked entirely. This will require significant preparation, I note, already calculating the logistical requirements. We would need to establish a legitimate shipping operation, create convincing documentation, ensure our droids pass visual inspection, all things your people excel at, Clarkson points out. Detailed planning, perfect documentation, meticulous execution. You just needed the unconventional idea to plug into your conventional excellence. A synthesis of approaches, I murmur, echoing the toast we shared when I first joined the Liberation. Exactly, she agrees. You bring the precision, we bring the unpredictability. Together we create something neither could achieve alone. As the meal progresses, we refine the concept further. The Knights contribute broad strokes innovative thinking, while I apply Shenath thoroughness to identify and resolve potential complications. By the time the bourbon is more than half consumed, we have the outline of an operation that might actually succeed. One last question, I say as an aide clears away the remains of our meal. The quantum triggers for reactivating the droids? Our technical teams lack experience with such technology. That's where Stella comes in, Clarkson replies. She's already working on the design specifications. She can transmit them directly to your manufacturing facilities through the quantum chip I gave you. I nod, mentally adding this to the operational timeline. How soon can you provide knights to assist with the specialized aspects of the operation? We've already got a team standing by, Pockets reveals. 6 knights, all with experience in covert installations. They can be here within 48 hours. You anticipated my request, I observe. Stella ran the projections, Swamp explains. She calculated a 93% probability that your next major target would be Calaxus, given your resource constraints and strategic objectives. The AI is remarkably insightful, I acknowledge. She prefers perceptive, Clarkson says with a slight smile. She's been studying your operational patterns, says you're developing a distinctive hybrid style, Shaneth precision with human unpredictability layered in at key decision points. Is that a compliment or a concern, I ask, genuinely unsure. Definitely a compliment, she assures me. You're creating something new, not just copying our approach, but integrating it with your own strengths. That's exactly what we hoped would happen. After the meal, we returned to the command center to brief my senior staff on the new operational concept. As expected, there is some resistance, particularly from those who have most recently defected from the Imperium and still cling to traditional Shenath doctrine. This approach relies too heavily on deception, objects General Vexen, formerly an Imperium fleet commander. The statistical variables are incalculable. We should focus on targets with more predictable outcomes. Predictable for us means predictable for them, I counter. The Imperium's weakness is its inability to adapt to approaches outside its tactical models. We must exploit that weakness. Commander, another officer interjects. Manufacturing false shipping credentials that can withstand Imperium verification would require resources we cannot spare from current operations. Then we don't falsify them, Pocket suggests. We use real ones. All eyes turn to him. Explain, I prompt. You've captured plenty of Imperium vessels with legitimate access codes, he points out. Instead of trying to create perfect fakes, use the real thing. Hijack an actual shipment in transit, replace the contents with your droids and send it on its way. The documentation will be flawless because it's genuine. A murmur runs through my staff, a sound I've come to recognize as the Sheneth equivalent of excited agreement. They're learning to appreciate the elegant simplicity of human-style improvisation. This approach has merit, General Vexen concedes reluctantly, though the operational security concerns remain significant. Which is why we'll prepare 17 alternative operations simultaneously, I decide, small-scale diversionary actions across the sector. The Imperium's analytical systems will detect the pattern of preparation and calculate that we're planning a distributed campaign, exactly what they would expect from a force with our resource limitations. Hiding in plain sight, Clarkson approves. They'll be so busy looking for the pattern they expect that they'll miss the one thing that doesn't fit. As the briefing continues, I observe the interaction between my Sheneth officers and the 3 knights. The initial stiffness has given way to a cautious but genuine exchange of ideas. My people are learning that human unpredictability doesn't mean chaos, it means adaptability. The knights, in turn, are learning to appreciate Shenatharith rather than dismissing it as rigid. 3 hours later, as the operational planning reaches its preliminary conclusion, I dismiss my staff to begin implementation. The 3 knights remain behind, studying the holographic display of Calaxus 4. You've built something impressive here, Clarkson says quietly. A month ago, these people couldn't conceive of deviating from established doctrine. Now they're embracing approaches that would have been unthinkable. They are adapting because they must, I reply. The Imperium's rigidity is proving fatal in this conflict. Even those most committed to traditional doctrine can see the mathematics of our success. It's more than that, Swamp disagrees. They're following your example. You were the embodiment of Sheneth precision and order, Supreme Security Director, enforcer of the Imperium's will. When you embraced change, it gave them permission to do the same. This perspective unsettles me slightly. I have never considered myself a revolutionary figure, merely a pragmatist who recognized that survival required adaptation. The transition has not been without cost, I observe. Many still struggle with the uncertainty inherent in our new approach. The psychological toll is considerable. Change always is, Pocket says with unexpected gravity. But staying the same when everything around you is changing, that costs more in the end. I cannot dispute this wisdom. The Imperium's refusal to adapt is precisely what has made it vulnerable to our hybrid approach. One last thing before we go, Clarkson says, producing a small package from inside her jacket. A gift from the Knights. Thought you might find it useful. Inside the package is a quantum spur, the distinctive device that Knights wear on their boots, generating those characteristic blue energy trails. But this one is different, modified to fit Shenath physiology. It's calibrated to your specific quantum signature, she explains. Stella helped design it. Won't give you all the capabilities of a full Knight, but it'll help with certain situations. I accept the gift with genuine appreciation, recognizing it for what it is, not merely a technological tool, but a symbol of acceptance. I am honored. Don't get too sentimental on us, Director, she teases. It's just practical. You're too valuable to lose if you get cornered by Imperium forces. But her expression tells me it's more than that. I have become more than an ally to these humans. I have become a friend, a concept as foreign to traditional Shenath culture as quantum uncertainty once was. As they prepare to depart, I find myself reflecting on the strange path that has brought me here. 3 months ago, I faced execution for failure to defeat these very same humans. Now, I lead a revolution that embraces their methods while preserving Shenath's strengths. I coordinate with their artificial intelligence, implement their unpredictable tactics, and even accept their customized technology. We'll be in touch through Stella, Clarkson says as they reach the door. The Knights assigned to your operation will arrive on schedule. Try not to start the Calaxis invasion without them. Your contribution is appreciated, I reply formally, then add with what might almost be described as humor, though I make no promises regarding timing. Unpredictability has its advantages after all. She laughs, a sound I have come to find strangely satisfying. Now you're getting it. Good hunting, Commander. Show the Imperium what happens when order learns to dance with chaos. After they depart, I return to my private quarters, contemplating the quantum spur they've gifted me. It represents everything that has changed in my existence, the fusion of Shenath precision with human adaptability, of calculated order with creative chaos. I place it carefully on my desk next to the holographic projector showing the Calaxis system. In 2 weeks, if our operation succeeds, the Liberation will control the Imperium's primary droid manufacturing facility. Our production capacity will double, the strategic balance will shift dramatically, and it will happen not through overwhelming force, but through a blend of deception and precision that neither humans nor Shenath could have devised alone. I activate my communications terminal, interfacing with the quantum chip Clarkson provided. Stella, are you receiving? Loud and clear, Commander Scansolan. The AI's harmonious voice responds. I take it the Knights have departed? Yes. They provided valuable insights for the Calaxis operation. I expected nothing less. They're quite inventive when properly motivated. There's a warmth to her artificial voice that still surprises me. I've completed the initial quantum trigger designs, transmitting to your manufacturing facilities now. Thank you, Stella. Your assistance is appreciated. I hesitate, then add, on a personal level, not merely a tactical one. Well now, she replies, and I detect what sounds like pleased surprise in her tone. That's the most Shenath expression of gratitude I've ever received. You're welcome, Commander, both tactically and personally. As I review the operation plans one final time before retiring, I find myself reflecting on the Duncan brothers' nicknames and the stories behind them, such trivial, chaotic origins for military designations. a stark contrast to the meticulously calculated rank structures of Shanath society. Yet there is something oddly appealing about this human approach. Their designations carry meaning, history, context. They tell stories that mathematical precision never could. Perhaps when the Calaxis operation succeeds, I might consider accepting the nickname some of my officers have begun using privately. They think I am unaware of it, but little escapes the attention of a former Supreme Security Director. Quantum, they call me, a reference to my embrace of human adaptive tactics and my association with the Knights. It is imprecise, informal, and entirely non-regulation. I find I rather like it. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave this video a like and subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. Video shares, memberships, and super thanks help the channel grow as well, so feel free to partner with this channel in that way as we grow. With that all said, thank you again for listening to the story, and thank you for your time. On the left side of your screen are some videos I think you might be interested in. I hope to see you in the next one.